Welcome to BNC Live. I'm Laverne McGee. It is Monday, November the 1st. The Supreme Court considering challenges to Texas' restrictive anti-abortion law. One case was filed by abortion providers, the other by the Justice Department. But both say the law conflicts with Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion nationwide anytime before viability, which can occur at around 24 weeks of pregnancy. Today's arguments focus on the unusual construction of the Texas law. State officials are not allowed to enforce it. Instead, private citizens from any state can bring a civil suit against anyone who helps a pregnant person seeking an abortion.
The injury would be akin to the one suffered in a tort of outrage, where a person witnesses something that essentially they find to be so extreme and outrageous, cause them extreme moral or otherwise psychological harm. That's
Give
how
me an
it works.
example of that.
An individual discovers that a close friend of theirs who they'd spoken with about pro-life issues and about abortion has chosen instead to have a late-term abortion in violation of SB 8, and they were very invested in basically in that child's upbringing, the child's coming into being.
Joining us now to discuss this is political commentator Stefano De Frey and political strategist Barak Lurie. Thank you both gentlemen for joining us. Let's talk about this. The Supreme Court decided not to ban the Texas abortion laws twice already. Why hear arguments now? Stefano, I'd like to start with you.
Well, I think that Texas is in a role right now to do a more creative, more modern version of challenging Roe versus Wade. Think about this law. Most individuals, most women do not even know that they're pregnant after this period of time. It's completely egregious to the decisions of Roe versus Wade. The other thing that it also does, to have public citizens get involved in someone else's rights, is it starts to put a bounty hunter aspect of rewarding people $10,000 to help the Texas state to prevent someone from having an abortion. I think that if this goes through, it shows you how unwell the Supreme Court is in its current state.
Barak, I'd like you to address this next issue here. I just want to clarify, the Supreme Court is not ruling directly on abortion per se. It's more about who has the authority to enforce or deny those rights. Barak, would you say that's a good clarification of what's happening here?
It is a good clarification, and it is, look, I'm as conservative as they come. I detest abortion like many conservatives do, but I am troubled by the enforcement mechanism that's involved here. I don't like the idea of snitching on one's neighbors. It could be used as a horrible weapon of extortion in the future, and it just smells. I don't like it. We don't seem to employ this in any circumstance for any other kind of area of law when you think about it, right? In California, we have something called the Private Attorney General Statute. It's the Business Code 17200. And that also had allowed a private citizen who wasn't even affected whatsoever by a business wrong to bring in legal action. And they struck that down because you do have to have standing. So I think there's some big issues here. Only the state should have standing, meaning a prosecutor, if you want to criminalize that is. I'm not going to get into that right now. But I'm simply saying if there's any standing to be had, it has to be by a prosecutor, a DA, as it were, not from a private citizen. It's not the kind of society we want to live in. So I think it's very unconservative, if anything.
Well, Barak, I appreciate you being very candid about being conservative and what your views are. And having said that, I'm going to pose this next question to Stefano because
Sure.
The Supreme Court, of course, is supposed to not be political. But of course, there are concerns that this court weighs heavily conservative. So, Stefano, do you think the GOP and former President Donald Trump purposely, wanted to get issues like abortion overturned?
I think that it responds to many of their first of all, I want to also say thank you for Barak for being very open and transparent in this issue. You can see if there's a bipartisan agreement on your panel. We have issues even from different perspectives, but the honesty of that is quite nice. The second thing I just want to say is that he has his constituents. Donald Trump has constituents that he's going to want to speak to that are very anti-abortion. And so this is part of a strategy to group in those voters, potentially to show them up also for 2022, but also potentially for a bid at 2024. I think that that's one of the issues that is really going to make the Supreme Court as well unglue. We talk about the courts being in a specific way, functioning in an apolitical fashion. This will really give the Democrats ammunition, if things like this are heard, to have more reason to reform the courts.
Barack, I'm going to give you the final word. I want you to respond because you have said you're conservative. Of course, the issue of abortion, so sensitive.
It is, and Stefano's right about this, that if it goes too far, it can become a campaign issue at the end of the day. To answer Stefano's question originally about your question about whether or not this was, Trump had appointed nominees for the purpose of perhaps overturning abortion laws, yeah, I think that's correct. I think that there is an overall take to pursue anti-abortion laws and otherwise to minimize abortion throughout the land. That's what you might expect from a conservative president. So I wouldn't be surprised about that. It's that's a very far cry from the Texas abortion law that we're talking about right now, which I think really overreaches. And I just don't know what they were thinking when they adopted this enforcement mechanism. It just does not work for me.
Well, gentlemen, I so appreciate this refreshing conversation that's been so civilized despite the differing political views. Thank you both so much. I know you're going to join me later for some more commentary. Political commentator Stefano De Frey and political strategist Barak Lurie. Thanks for being with us, and we're going to check back with you on some election issues. Meanwhile, candidates for Virginia governor are making one last push to rally supporters in what shaped up to be a very close contest.